Girivarada Vijana Vallabha Girivarada Yashodhana Dana Prajaja Yashodhana Jajana Yamun Iravancha Yamunadira Anachari Yamunadira Ancha Yamunadira Ancha Jayadvata Madhava Shaviya Radha Punjabiga Vijana Vallabha Vijana Girivardhana Yashodhana Rajaja Yashodhana Jajana Yamuna Gira Dacha Yamuna Gira Nacha Yamuna Gira Pancha Yamuna Gira Pancha Jaya Madhava Radha Shri Radha Madhava Radha Shri Prabhupada Prabhu Jaya Prabhu I guess my dear devotees, sorry I'm late. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 15. The saints Narada and Angira instruct King Chitraketu. Text 8. Deha dehi vibhagoyam aviveka kritapura jati vyakti vibhagoyam yata vastu nikalpitaha. Deha dehi vibhagoyam aviveka kritapura jati vyakti vibhagoyam yata vastu nikalpitaha. Would anyone like to try to read the verse?
Oh, what verse are you chanting?
Oh, let's see. Do I have it wrong? 16. My bad. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Prepared for the wrong verse, but I will try. Okay. Evang yoni gato jiva. Let's see. Sanityo nirahankritaha yavadyatro palabheta avad swatwang hitasya tat. Evang yoni gato jiva sanityo nirahankritaha yavadyatro palabheta avad satvam hitasya tat. So we're reading from 6:16:8. Would anyone online like to try to read the verse?
Evam yoni gato jiva Sanityo nirahankritaha yavadyatro palabhyeta tavat svatvam hitasyatat.
Evam yoni gato jiva sanityo nirahankrita yavad gatro palabeyata tavat svatyam hitasyatat.
Evam yoni gato jiva sanityo nirahankritaha yavad yatro palabhyeta tavat svatvam hitasyatat.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
Evam yoni gato jiva sanitya nirahankitaha yavadyatro palapita tavat svatvam hitasyatat.
Thank you. Anyone else? Evam, thus, yonigataha, being within a specific species of life. Jivaha, the living entity. Saha, he. Nityaha, eternal. Nirahankritaha, without identification with the body. Yavat, as long as. Yatra, where. Upalabhyeta, he may be found. Tavat, that long. Swatvam, the concept of self. He, indeed. Tasya, of that. Translation. Even though one living entity becomes connected with another because of a relationship based on bodies that are perishable, the living entity is eternal. Actually, it is the body that is born or lost, not the living entity. One should not accept that the living entity takes birth or dies. The living being actually has no relationship with so-called fathers and mothers. As long as he appears as the son of a certain father and mother as a result of his past fruitive activities, he has a connection with the body given by that father and mother. Thus, he falsely accepts himself as their son and acts affectionately. After he dies, however, the relationship is finished. Under these circumstances, one should not be falsely involved with jubilation and lamentation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the living entity lives within the material body, he falsely thinks that he is the body, although actually he is not. His relationship with his body and his so-called father and mother are false, illusory conceptions. These illusions continue as long as one is not enlightened about the situation of the living entity. Text again. Evanyoni Ratojiva Sanityo Nirahankrita Yavadyatro Palabhyeta Tavat Satvam Hitasyatat. Even though one living entity becomes connected with another because of a relationship based on bodies that are perishable, the living entity is eternal. Actually, it is the body that is born or lost, not the living entity. One should not accept that the living entity takes birth or dies. The living being actually has no relationship with so-called fathers and mothers. As long as he appears as the son of a certain father and mother, as a result of his past fruitive activities, he has a connection with the body given by that father and mother. Thus, he falsely accepts himself as a son and acts affectionately. After he dies, however, the relationship is finished. Under these circumstances, one should not be falsely involved with jubilation, lamentation. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shumate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ashtapraishva Bhadraishu Nityam Bhagavata Seva Bhagavati Tamashloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So we are hearing about the a major aspect of illusion, a major aspect of bondage. This is one of the key links in keeping the living entity bound in the cycle of birth and death. Identification with one's parents. And the basis of this identification is the consciousness of pranamaya. So there's 5 stages of the expansion of consciousness. Begins from annamaya, when one is a baby, and when and that's basically based on your life, the conception that my life is sustained by eating. And so that's why babies put whatever in their mouth. When Krishna exemplified the perfection of this annamaya um, in Gokul, when he was accused of eating dirt. Now, with Krishna, even if you could accuse Krishna of being an annamaya, he can put the whole universe in his mouth and still sustain the universe from outside. So, yeah, Krishna is the perfect baby. And then that annamaya expands into pranamaya, where you see, okay, who is actually producing my food? Who is preparing my food? Who's giving me food? So then you see, oh, it's your parents that are providing the resources. And so then you begin to see that, okay, my relationship to them is actually what's sustaining my life. And typically for most living entities, this persists. They can't actually go beyond this. That other living entities are what sustains me. When you look at the bodily demands of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, um, generally they are being supplied or being facilitated by another living entity. And so the service capacity of the living entity. So we are our dharma, the dharma of the living entity is to serve. So this is Sanatana Dharma. Prabhupada explains it very nicely in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. And he quotes Parashara Muni. And Parashara Muni says that, actually, no, that's in relation to something else. But Sanatana Dharma of the living entity is to always render service. Now, when you think in the pranamaya conception of life, well, my eating, again, it's being supplied by my parents. My sleeping, well, this house, it just was always there when I was born, and my parents are, controlling everything in the house. And then when you are older and you marry, then you control your own house. You pay a mortgage. Okay, well, who is giving you the resources to pay a mortgage? Okay, it's an employer. So then your whole conception is that you're dependent on an employer. And therefore you serve an employer in some way. If you're a business owner, your employers basically are your customers. So if your customers are not happy, or if they reduce in number, you are in anxiety. So it's other living entities. Then if you become a business owner, then it's basically labor. So the people who are running your business. So it's your whole conception is caught up within the network. So even if you do become a consummate Vaishya and you become a business owner, still your livelihood is tied to another living entity. It's a network of living entities. So that's on, shelter, sleeping. Basically, the basis of having some kind of home and shelter, and all the resources for your sense enjoyment. And then with mating, uh, even Mitrukunda, he actually tells Krishna is that even though I was a great king, I would have to bow down with my wives, looking for sense gratification, begging, asking them. So the king reduced to the position of a beggar. So yes, externally everybody sees this. This is a great monarch, an emperor of the whole world, has so much power to control. And yet, at night, he is bowing down at the feet of his wives. So, yes, no matter how great you are, you know that even for sexual sense enjoyment, it's dependent on another living entity. Sleeping, mating, and defending. And defense, typically our defense is dependent on, ultimately, it's the government for military defense. So when you read the news and feel like, yes, I'm an American, I feel safe. Well, why do I feel safe? Well, we got all these, yeah, really super advanced weapons, got nuclear weapons. Uh, I've spoken about this quite a few times. The USS Pennsylvania, very advanced submarine. So, yeah, we got those kinds of weapons. And then locally, you can be like, well, my Second Amendment is what protects me. I can carry a gun, especially in Pennsylvania, where you don't really need what is it? Concealed carry license. Yeah. Um, so laws, um, yeah, the ability to get these things, you can see it's dependent on some other network of living entities. So most people with this caught up in this basically way of life in conception, very difficult to move past pranamaya. And even Brahma, when Brahma speaks about the layers of ignorance that he created, so the first issue is this tamas. Tamas is identification with the body. And then this tamas becomes into moha. And moha is the illusion where you're caught up in maintaining other living entities. So basically, the basis of maintenance of family life is moha. Then it becomes maha moha because this your nuclear family expands. And from that expansion, it becomes a network. And then you become actually entangled. So the consciousness that the living entity is moving through this network and interacting is this pranamaya. And the basis of it is uh, the root of it is identification with one's parents. So even if you take birth, like here in the US, and from fellow god brothers and sisters and different persons I've come across being here in the US, uh, a phenomena which really I still can't digest. I just find very shocking is that the culture here is um, parents and children don't like each other very much. It's so shocking. Like I still, even though I can say it and I can articulate it, and devotees will tell me, even devotees will tell me stories between their parents and their relationship and how it evolved. Young students that we've, shown different services on the farm. They'll tell me that, yeah, by 18, basically, you have to find a place to stay. As soon as you graduate from high school, you're as good as kicked out the house. Um, and yeah, you try to make ends meet. So from 16 in the summer, you have to be thinking about money. Like, how am I going to make money? And because you're thinking in this consciousness, then the affection between, and then by the time you get to 18, that natural affection, which should be there, because the parents aren't saying that, well, you can continue living at home, uh, then yes, that connection, that identification with one's parents is slackened. It's no longer strong. But what do you do as the living entity? Well, you'll just get attached to another network. So usually students will take shelter of like a fraternity at university. Um, so you can't escape it. So even if you don't like your parents, pranamaya just follows you wherever because the basis of it is identification with the body. So if your body is always needing eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and your means of satisfying that has always been through other living entities, pranamaya just follows you. And therefore, it's very difficult to actually give up. So, Krishna, what does he say? Najayate mriyate vakata chinnayam bhutva bhavitam va na bhuya. Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane shariri. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He is not coming to being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So this verse and this truth about the living entity is very important because if you're identifying with the body, then you have to be caught up in pranamaya. And so you have to identify with another living entity those sets of living entities are going to be the means of satisfying your eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But you are if you are firmly convinced that you're not slain when the body is slain, in other words, even if you don't have enough to eat, even if you can't sleep very well, even if you can't satisfy your demands for sexual enjoyment, um, and even if you don't have sufficient means to defend your body, you are not afraid. So if you can come to the state of consciousness where you're not fearful when these bodily demands are satisfied, then you're actually escaping. You're beginning to escape. And the beginning of that escape begins with Gyanamaya, actually inquiring, why am I suffering? So I'm suffering because I'm trying to actually satisfy these bodily demands. So this is what's the trick of the illusory energy is that it has convinced you that satisfy these bodily demands to end your suffering. But actually, the beginning of your suffering is by trying to satisfy these bodily demands. So people will be like, well, most people would resist, be like, but are you advocating that we not sleep? Are you advocating that we don't eat? Are you advocating that we don't defend ourselves against adversaries or we don't make means uh, to set up a kind of a security plan for ourselves, our lives? So you have to do it Krishna's way. This is the point. So if you do it your way, you're going to suffer. But if you do it Krishna's way, then you'll be fine. So with Krishna, he says that if you're going to eat, well, first of all, offer. So do it as an offering. So first of all, make an offering to Krishna. But if you don't do this, you actually won't be satisfied. So you can eat this way, that way. You can, like in the US, in European countries, they have 400 ingredients in all their processed foods. in the US, can you guess how many ingredients there are on the food market? 10,000. That's why there's this movement of make America healthy again, the Maha movement. Yeah. So you can, and the thing is, those ingredients, we don't have uh, the digestive power to digest all these very fancy concoctions that have been created in the lab. We're just not built that way. Uh, Krishna or Brahma didn't design a body to digest 10,000 compounds, different types of ingredients. Yeah, it's actually very limited. So if you do it Krishna's way is produce the fruit naturally, locally, protect the cows. If it's all local, you don't need all these ingredients. Preserve the food, curate it, create these different flavors. It's all local. And therefore, you won't have these diseases that are developing. And processed foods, it's a drug. It's not even food. It's a drug. Like this fellow god brother, Jiva Pandit Prabhu was telling us that he went to India 2 years ago, and yeah, he had a really wonderful experience. So he was in Vrindavan. There's a lot of stray dogs, and they're hungry. So in the part of where he was, um, I don't know if it was Vrindavan or Delhi. Anyway, where he was, there were quite a few stray dogs. So he's like, well, uh, stray dog that's hungry. I've got a Nature Valley oatmeal bar. So he just broke a piece off and gave it to the dog. The dog will obviously see it's emaciated, it's skinny, and so naturally it's hungry. He sniffed it, he just walked away. Monkey came, so he was looking. A monkey came, ate it, spat it out, and walked away. So these snacks, that we buy on the market, that's animals perceive them not to be food. Yeah, yeah, they're not food. So we have been convinced that they are food through the illusory potency. Is this these very big food processors? They've mastered the art that, well, to trick the tongue in thinking that this is food, um, you basically trick it in terms of sweetness, saltiness, and the texture in terms of creaminess. So basically, the tongue, that's what you're tricking. You're tricking the tongue. So the tongue is supposed to actually be your protector so that you don't put in stuff that's bad. But these guys have become so sophisticated that even that you can't figure out actually that this is not good for you, and you become conditioned. But because the animals, they are still eating according to Krishna's way, because they're being maintained by Janardhan Krishna. So they are not under this illusion that's being generated by these food processors. And so immediately they taste, they're like, yeah, this isn't food. So even our own pranamaya has become underdeveloped in one sense, or at least our anamaya in terms of putting what is favorable in the mouth. So the point is that we should become fearless. So this is why Prabhupada, we worship him. And he's aptly named Abhaycharan Aravinda. So he who is fearless, who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. So because Prabhupada was very fearless, we can see in his life that he was firmly convinced that the body is not slain. Yeah, so he isn't slain when the body is slain. So much so that he could continue doing his service to his Guru Maharaj till death. translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, yes, so in escaping this pranamaya, we need to really do it Krishna's way. And so the whole process of we offer our food to Krishna, we cooking for Krishna. It may seem like, well, this is a bit like a chore, you know. But you should remember that if you don't do it, what takes over is this pranamaya. That because you're not doing it as an offering to Krishna, then Krishna, he says it's actually sin. So sin, if you look at a very basic level, sin, coming from the Latin, it means without, just like in Spanish, you know, uh, un taza de café sin leche. So cup of coffee without, yeah, or couple, let me say un taza de té sin leche. So a cup of tea without milk. So so it means without. So sin means without God. So activities without God means that you get stuck in the cycle of birth and death. And what's pushing that is this pranamaya. So we should remember, dear devotees, that all the rules and regulations of maintaining our devotion, they're actually there to really help us escape the cycle of birth and death. So, yes, you can be like, well, we'll just do a quick offering, or, well, I'm just going to taste this. I'll just offer it in my mind. So, all these shortcuts that may enter into your practice, you should know to that degree, you're going to be affected by pranamaya. And yeah, and so we should really be careful. So that's why the human form of life is highly responsible, because it's in this form that you can escape the the binding force of this pranamaya. When you hear discussions, one of the goals of this administration, the government right now, is to go on a manned mission to Mars. So they're saying we can do it in 20 to 30 years. Obviously, then, yes, the question is, well, haven't we done it before by going to the moon? Why should it take that long? But that's a controversy for another time. But the point is that there's a force that's actually keeping everybody on the Earth planet, and one it's been discovered. It was discovered, I think, 1956 or so, around that time, and it was called the Van Allen belt. So Van Allen belt of radiation that's around. So when you hear persons discussing this issue, you'll hear that they will say, when we talk about life on other planets, why haven't other living entities come to this planet? And could we find evidence that we've been contacted by other living entities, even within our solar system? You'll hear things like, basically, a civilization is advanced to the degree that it can escape its atmosphere. So, um, yeah, so the whole idea with uh, conception of advancement in mainstream society is to what degree we can actually escape the Earth's gravity, escape through this Van Allen belt of radiation. But that isn't the way to actually go to higher planets. Because they can see is that, well, to go to other planets, we need faster than light travel because things are just so far away. Is it actually possible? So when you read Bhagavatam, it's really giving you the means of escaping the gravity of earth. Because when you talk about escaping the cycle of birth and death, you're really talking about escaping gravity. Yeah. The means to actually go to other planets, the means to even escape the gravity of the universe, the thing that's actually keeping you bound within this universe. So, dear devotees, when you're offering your bhoga to Krishna, you should know you are taking a step towards escaping. Basically, you're actually very advanced, uh, as more advanced than somebody who wants to go to Mars. Uh, because why just Mars? Why, whatever planet you can see, why can't you just have the freedom of wanting to go there? So the rules and regulations in devotional service are the means for unbounded freedom. And freedom from this conception, freedom from the fearlessness that my body will be slain, freedom from the conception that if I don't satisfy my daily demands of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, that I'll be dissatisfied. I won't be happy. It's not in line with my self-interest. No, you shouldn't. You should become brave. You should become courageous and do it Krishna's way. And over time, as you actually maintain longer streaks, so from days become weeks, weeks become years, years become decades. Over time, you actually, yes, you will experience that. Before I started practicing Krishna consciousness, before I started the streak of just being like really consistent, being really particular with doing everything Krishna's way. Krishna says you should eat a certain way. Krishna says you should sleep a certain way. Krishna says you should mate a certain way. And you should defend a certain way. So if you do it through the way Krishna is saying, you'll actually have tangible experience that the freedom that I'm experiencing is much greater than um, the freedom that I had experienced when I did it my way. So yes, this verse, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishami Masuchaha. That Krishna is saying, shut down your plan making factory and just do it his way. And so, yes, let us pray for the strength in the wake of the appearance of Sri Ramanujacharya. So, yesterday was his appearance. Very powerful Sri Vaishnava Acharya, considered to be an incarnation. Um, the text I was reading was saying, is it Vayu? Tarka Prabhu can give us more details. But we can get the strength. We need strength to be consistent in our practice. And in this way, we can escape the bounds of pranamaya. Do you have any questions, reflections, or contentions?
Yeah,
Uh,
really aware of shut down our person plan making.
yeah,
I saw somewhere you really their intelligence in planning so many ways to spread Christian consciousness.
yeah,
So if the platform is too strong, it's that form we can just rework it to try to spread this message.
yeah,
Favorable people who just don't have access where they're at.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, taxing your brain to spread the Sankirtan movement, that isn't the same as your own personal plan making factory. Because there, what you're concerned with is the satisfaction of Lord Chaitanya. Whereas, and it's Lord Chaitanya's body. So the Sankirtan, this Chaitanya tree, the spread of the Sankirtan movement, this is Chaitanya tree, and that is Lord Chaitanya's body. So your concern is the sense gratification of Lord Chaitanya, who is not different from Krishna. That's different from a plan-making factory that's centered around the sense gratification of this body. Yeah. So even though, yes, one could say, well, this body is part and parcel. It's a leaf on the Chaitanya tree. And therefore, me making plans to satisfy my body, uh, it shouldn't be bad because it's part and parcel of Krishna. Well, that's wrong. That's a wrong conception because Krishna is saying, if you try to do it that way, it's like trying to put food in the wrong hole in your body, through the ear, through the nostril, through the eye. It's just not going to work. There's a way to do it. And the way to sustain a tree is you need to be concerned with the roots. And so by trying to satisfy, by creating plans for the Sankirtan movement, that is the way to eat. That's the proper way to eat. Are there any other reflections or contentions?
I hope my sadhana will be strong enough to get past the Van Allen radiation belts.
Yeah, yep, that's the way. We are advanced. We are trying to go to other planets, Krishna's way. And yes, if you are consistent, Prabhupada gives you that guarantee that you'll go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So that means cutting edge, faster than light, intergalactic travel. Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu. Dhruva
Okay,
Maharaj Prabhu.
got it. Hare Krishna, thanks for class. Yesterday we spoke a little bit about, well, a lot. We spoke about the slide. What's your advice of someone on the slide? Any reflections, thoughts on how we can jump off the slide or climb back up? Does it need to be complicated? Is there any hope for us?
Yeah, the way Tarka Prabhu answered the question was the perfect answer, and that is association of a great devotee. And even Rupa Goswami is saying as well, this is one of the 6 principles that are favorable to executing devotional service. So should be the main principle, is that no matter what happens, you should be associating with great devotees. And Prabhupada he went through great pain to actually establish a worldwide movement where different great devotees can travel around the world and give association to other devotees. So without Prabhupada, yeah, you would be limited in terms of having access to that association. He went through great pains to establish Ratha Yatra in many countries. So basically now, on every continent, there is a Ratha Yatra, and in quite a few countries in a continent. And Ratha Yatras attract great devotees. And so you should try to do that. And then COVID gave us access to these Bhaktivedantas who are traveling around the world in the form of various Zoom stream classes. And so now, ISKCON is more online. Devotees are giving their classes. But in-person association is best. Because with online is that there's a tendency to get distracted. There's a tendency to lump it with any other video that you can watch. And that tendency to equalize things, yeah, you can really might not land in terms of the impact of what they're saying. But when you see them, when they're in person, That's why Krishna consciousness is more powerful than other religions, because it emphasizes the power of this in-person association. Instead of having a guru that was present 2,000 years ago, no, get a live guru who will actually physically chastise you with his words, encourage you when you're doing something right. It just lands deeper into the heart, this in-person association. So I don't know, probably if that answers your question, but yeah, Tarko Prabhu, he gave a very satisfactory answer yesterday. And yeah, if you whatever happens, you follow these principles, getting access to great devotee, and then revealing your mind. Make sure that you reveal your mind. Have at least one friend that you talk to, and Krishna, yes, you'll make them in. So if you're on the slide, you will say it. You will say something that's a little off, and either your friend or this great devotees that you get the association with, they will pick it up, and Krishna will say something. Is that okay, Prabhu, or do
All
you
right.
have another?
Thank you. Just ask more questions. No, sorry, I need to figure out how to get rid of that. Yes, of course, in our current location, we'll need to attract more great souls to help us in our journey at Gita Nagari. So
But
that's
they're
what.
coming. I mean, every year they're coming. Our spiritual master, he comes in the summer. He spends quite a bit of time with us. Gauranga Prabhu came. Radhnath Maharaj was here. He's coming as well in June. So in the summertime, great devotees do come on the farm. So we are not so remote that like Greenland. There's no, I don't know if there's an ISKCON center in Greenland or maybe Antarctica, if there is one. But we are not that remote. Uh, yeah, we're only 4 hours from New York, so it's not that bad. Okay. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. There was a hand from Dina Palika. It went down. There's John Vatsala.
Hare Krishna, thank you for class. Oh yeah, Dina Palika, go.
I thought I was safe by raising it after you already started speaking. I wanted you to go first. Yeah, I really appreciated your class, and I was just thinking, the material civilization isn't wrong that they say that the advancement of a civilization should be judged based on how they can break out of the confines of this planet or the universe. But even if we do a comparative analysis, we have the best means for how to do that. So I thought it was a really good point. And another thing that I wanted to see if you can expand on is that it seems like there's a systematic, you're talking about the food supply. And then also we hear, like David Swami gives the example of how he was speaking to the former Prime Minister of New Zealand about how even in New Zealand, which is supposed to be like a progressive and peaceful and natural country, there's a push by the government, those behind the scenes, to basically keep people in debt and in ignorance by just give them enough sports and enough, TV, and then you can control the population. So I'm wondering if you can connect, like, basically the way the governments or people behind the scenes are pushing things, and us staying in the lower, I don't know what they're called, anamaya, pranamaya, like that.
Yeah, so Tarko Prabhu mentioned, he's my go-to. Tarko Prabhu mentioned, we should really be careful in terms of the podcasts we listen to. So nowadays, practically speaking, anyone can create a podcast. You're not sure in terms of their credentials. They can maybe give, their life story. They might sound good, you know. They The podcast is nicely set up. It has a nice presentation. But it doesn't mean that what they're saying, the epistemology of what they're saying, is rooted in your self-interest. So what I mean by that is epistemology is the basis for how do we know what we know. And so basically the podcast framework is that, well, because I'm not part of corporate media, then what I'm saying is likely to be true. So this is the assumption of podcast media. But we should look, how is that person living? So the epistemological framework in Bhakti is that how you live, basically that reflects how you know what you know. So if the person is caught up in pranamaya and you're listening to them daily, oh, you're going to be affected by pranamaya. There's no doubt about it. But if you listen to persons who are really actively trying to not identify with their body, basically you're going to be affected in a favorable way. But if you're listening to persons who are caught up in this illusion, then you'll be affected. I want to continue this discussion. So we go about Srimad Bhagavatam Puja.
So just one point of clarification on that, because I was reading with a devotee the Nectar of Instruction yesterday, and Prabhupada says, I think in text 4 or 5 in the purport that, one should be very careful what they're eating, what they're putting into their body, because they take on the qualities, the sins of that person that cooked it, that's non-devotional consciousness. So it sounds like you're saying the same thing about hearing, is like even the subtle effects we take on, not just like what they're saying, oh, they tell me I should eat whatever, more broccoli. It's not just that. It's like you're also taking on their like deeper conceptions about life.
Yes, and the thing is that if you listen to them carefully, you'll see you can basically trace out how any recommendation that they make, what is the basis. So if you listen to what they're saying carefully, it's usually based on sense gratification and it's based on pranamaya. Like, okay, well, if you have the position America first, then America shouldn't go to wars. America shouldn't be fighting other wars of other countries. We shouldn't be sending young persons American lives, sacrificing American lives for other countries. It sounds good, right? That America shouldn't be involved in other wars. Sounds good because then if America isn't involved in other wars, then in one sense there'll be less wars because America is currently it's a superpower militarily, and so they can if they're involved, then it just pushes on things, pushes on that war. It sounds good that yes, let's not send taxpayers' money, my taxes, to fight other people's wars. But what is the basis? The basis is not what Krishna is saying. The basis is me and my family. Um, it's this pranamaya. That's the basis. So even though it sounds good, an idea relative to what any kind of distress, any kind of problem that you're trying to solve, when you listen to a podcast and it sounds good relative to what you're trying to do. But think about the basis of what they're saying. And because the basis is not Krishna conscious, that's going to affect you. Just like with processed foods, if you look at it tastes like milk, like say vegan stuff, it'll taste like milk, it'll taste salt. So it's familiar in terms of its taste, its immediate taste. Uh, Saltiness, creaminess, sourness, it's familiar. But when you look at the ingredients, the basis is something you can't digest. And because it's something you can't digest, it's some long, complicated chemical formula with some ingredient, it's actually going to make you unhealthy, even though it tastes like that which um, is for your self-interest. So that's the way this podcasting works, is that even though the basis of it is, it seems like it's according to Dharma, that the last leg of Dharma is truthfulness, and that laypersons who are doing investigative journalism, they're not likely to lie to you because they're not tied with uh, corporate interests. Yes, it tastes good, but what is the basis of what they say? The basis is meat eating. Like you'll see, a lot of them, they'll just be, they make their money through, what is it called again? Affiliate marketing. And they'll be giving advertisements of meat, etc. And it's like you're trying to listen, right? And then they'll talk about their ads. And then they'll even give their own personal testimony of why they are sourcing, why they're actually advertising this specific thing. So it's all in the mix. It all gets mixed up in that motivation of why they're doing what they're doing, and you actually get affected by that. You can't digest it. It just pushes on the pranamaya. So yes, we should be careful. Does that answer your question?
Yep, I could keep going on and on, but there's other devotees
Okay,
that would have
thank
their
you.
hands raised.
All right. Janavatsal.
Thank you for a brilliant class and discussion, especially on, you said you had prepared on the wrong verse, but yeah, you did a great job talking about the 5 stages of consciousness and some of the illusions, tamas, moha, maha. So I just want to share some verses, and I had a question. I was thinking about Dhruva Maharaj. I want to respond to what Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu was talking about in terms of the answer is to try to associate with great devotees. So I was thinking about how Madhupan Lila was talking on Tuesday about the rarity of the human body. And there's this verse that talks about that, but also the rarity of association of pure devotees. It goes, Dorlabo manasho deho, dehinam shanabangara, tatra pi dorlabam manye vaikunta priyadarshana. It's Bhagavatam 11:229. For the conditioned soul of the human body is most difficult to achieve, and it can be lost at any moment. But I think that even those who have achieved human life rarely gain the association of pure devotees who are dear to the Lord of Vaikunta. So we know the human birth is so rare to obtain, but even getting that association of the devotees who are dear to the Lord of Vaikunta is even more rare than getting that. And then furthermore, I was thinking about how we can pray to get that association of devotees. We can pray like Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu prayed in the Bhagavatam 4:9-11. And he says, Bhakti Mahu Prabhatam Tvaime Prasango Bhuyadananta Mahatam Amalashayanam Enanda Sobanamuru Vyasanam Bhavabdim Neshe Bhavad Gunakatamritapanamata. And he says, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who are dear, great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly as the waves of a river constantly flow. Such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. And he also continues that by the process of devotional service, he shall surely be able to cross over the nascent ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. And it will be very easy for him because he is becoming mad to hear about the transcendental qualities and pastimes which are eternally existent of the Lord. So we can pray like this, like he prayed. And we were talking about this verse 11:229 on the Monday before last Monday when Dasya Prem Prabhu gave class. We were talking about that verse about the rarity of human life and then the rarity of getting association of the Lord, the devotees of the Lord. And then we also brought up this verse that Dasya Prem Prabhu had been looking for about the sadhu and attachment to the sadhu. And that was Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-20. Prasangam majaram pasham atmana kavayo vidu saeva sadhusu krito mokshadvaram apavritam. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul, but that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. So we can take that attachment that we have with the pranamaya and all that stuff and transfer that attachment to the pure devotees of the Lord. And just for the sake of what Dhruva Maharaj was talking about, I was thinking it's nice. There's the first word of the purport of the Bhagavatam 4.9.11. For Dhruva Maharaj, our Dhruva Maharaj, I wanted to share it. It says, the significant point in Dhruva Maharaj's statement is that he wanted the association of pure devotees. So we can transcribe that to our Dhruva Maharaj and think that he would want that. And then lastly, my question was about what is you were talking about how we can do things Krishna's way, which is really nice. And how we can do that with eating and sleeping and mating. And what is the way to do defending in Krishna's way?
Well, thank you so much for that stream of nectar. One personal project I have is how to like build an AI that will just, okay, I don't have much time to prepare for class. And so I just want to pull as many verses that are relevant to what I'm speaking on. And I think my problem has been solved. Like, I don't need to build this AI. I just call you 5 minutes before
Jai,
class.
Haribol.
I just call Jana Vatsala and she'll just like put it all together. This is just like wonderful. Thank you so much for that stream of nectar.
I was
Um,
thinking the same thing. Sorry, I was thinking the exact same thing. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks,
yeah,
Jana.
um, so yes, so how to defend Krishna's way? So Krishna's way is Dandavats. That's Krishna's way. Um, so there's a striking pastime in the Mahabharata about the Narayan Astra. So the Narayan Astra was a weapon that Ashwatthama launched to the Pandavas after his father had been killed, Dronacharya. And this Narayan Astra, the only way to counteract it is to offer prostrated obeisances to it. And if you don't do that and you try to fight against it, it actually becomes more intense. And so Krishna, he told everybody, Ashwatthama throw the Narayan Astra, everybody get down, no weapons, don't even think about resisting it, just completely, basically surrender yourselves to this Astra. And so everybody got down except for Bhima. So Bhima, he was like, no way I'm going to do this. So remember, Bhima, he's in Sakya Ras with Krishna. And so Sakas, they see themselves as equals. And so he was like, no, I'm going to actually fight against it. And he tried to fight. And Ashwatthama then concentrated its heat on Bhima's body. And Krishna was seeing this. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jana. And Krishna was seeing this heat. Just it was about to bring down Bhima. It was just absolutely Bhima was like a fireball. He was basically on fire. And so it would have actually burnt him to ashes. But then Arjuna and Krishna went to Bhima and they were just trying to pull him down. No, you have to get down. You have to get down. This is the only way to defeat the Astra. And so he's resisting them. He's trying to resist the Astra. And then eventually he resisted. He acquiesced. He got down and the heat of the Astra passed over their heads, and it passed aimlessly. So Ashwatthama knew, he could see is that, oh, yes, only Krishna knew the secret to how to defeat this Astra. Otherwise, it would have completely decimated the forces of the Pandavas, what remained of them. So Krishna knows, that's the point, is that when Krishna says Sarva Dharma Parityaja, So the whole lifestyle of Krishna consciousness, defense is actually built into it. Just like we've experienced in devotional service that our eating is solved, our mating is solved even. Is that okay? Well, if you can stay brahmachari, good, stay brahmachari. But if you can't, well, you'll find a wife or a husband in the association of devotees and do it Krishna's way. Only have sex only for the purposes of procreation. And in this way, you won't actually be entangled. And the defense is that, well, here we are at Gita Nagari, taking shelter, trying to serve Prabhupada's mission. And Prabhupada is saying, books, 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 and farm, farm, farm. That's defense for the entire movement. Knowledge and pure boga. So if we're producing pure boga for the devotees and for the deities, Prabhupada is saying that this is one of if we're giving pure knowledge and then pure boga, these two things, they will actually give complete defense to the devotees. And yes, we only got a front gate recently. I think it's been like a year. But before we didn't have a front gate. Doors were unlocked. I mean, I had a tough time. I had like my laptop, my valuables in my room, and I'm like, they don't lock doors here. So I had a tough time getting used to that. So if we do Krishna's way as directed by his he's a yeah the acharya, his pure devotee representative Prabhupada. Defense is actually built into that, and the acharya, he's not oblivious. Acharya is not oblivious to the needs of the devotees, the bodily needs. They are frontline soldiers, frontline generals, and they're always fighting for the interests of the devotees. And if we do things their way, yes, we will be protected. I hope that answers your question, Jana. We can talk more about it if you have maybe you might have a contention. Jagannath Pandit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so much for this interesting, stimulating class. So maybe you should give impromptu classes more often. But I liked the analogies you were giving, and I was thinking about this point about going to other planets, and how this country and other countries, they're kind of vying for the perception of progress or prowess or power, getting to another planet and so on, and spending so much resources trying to be the number one, that sort of thing. But for a devotee, you were also talking about achieving other planets, but it almost sounds a little like what's the word? Like desiring liberation, And so how do we, in the analogies you were giving, how do we see that in terms of, like, for example, Mukunda, when Lord Chaitanya said he would not see him for millions of years. I mean, he was dancing and happy and joyous, ecstatic, that he wasn't even thinking about the millions of births. He was only thinking the association. But for being in the material world and for myself and being a conditioned soul, the tendency is to counteract material miseries, not thinking of, what would be pleasing to Krishna. So I was thinking that a devotee is thinking, what is Krishna's pleasure whatever planet I'm on, where I'm in hellish planet, I'm here, or wherever, just whatever would please Krishna. And then it's like achieving those higher planets, or the pinnacle of planets, is like a byproduct. But if we focus on, okay, I want to achieve this planet, it's almost like a liberation consciousness. So any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Prabhu, for that correction. Yes, so we should always I should try to always push pure devotional service. In that analogy, I wasn't pushing karma yoga. It was just like a way to evaluate, just to see the value of following the regulative principles of freedom. So it's the same way that Shukadev Goswami explains the cowherd boys. Sakam Vija Ru Krita Punya Punja. So he says, the cowherd boys, having accumulated results of pious activities for many lives, were able to associate in this way with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can one explain their great fortune? So it's a rhetorical device, and it's a way of comparison where, okay, yes, you might not see the value of associating with the Supreme Lord, but if we explain it through the lens of karma yoga, then you might see it. So that's really what I was trying to do. But you're definitely right. Pure devotion, even our motivation for following the regulative principles should be anya vilashita shunya, jnana karma dhyana. So if we're doing it, we should do it just for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, just for the pleasure of the spiritual master. The spiritual master said we should do it. And so if that's our primary motivation, then it's the pathway of this anya vilashita shunya. But if somebody should protest, somebody who hasn't entered the culture, the epistemological culture of Krishna consciousness, where we know how we know that the regulative principles are indeed those of freedom and the highest freedom. They might not have entered that culture. They might not have been able to understand that point. So, as a means of further explanation, you can explain how it is indeed um, the pathway to escaping this planet. It's the pathway to escaping this galaxy, the Milky Way. Uh, this is when Krishna, he says, do it this way. These are some of the subsidiary rewards that Krishna will actually give you. They're secondary, yes, but the devotee, that's not why they're doing it. So you have your internal, just like when you go to work, like Jana had to sign off to go to work. So we never reveal our hearts actually to non-devotees, because if we do, then we are likely to, whatever they say in response is likely to enter the heart. Because when you reveal, you open. So you create an opening. And so if the devotee of Krishna is revealing their hearts to others, then what they say can enter the heart. So as a means of defense is that, okay, if you can't tell the person, non-devotees, that, well, I'm following these regulative principles because my spiritual master said so, and my spiritual master is my life and soul, and they look at you like, I mean, what, you've surrendered yourself to a man? What's wrong with you? So that the person can plant a seed of doubt. Because you've opened your heart and they say those words, it can just enter. So I was just giving another means of contextualizing the regulative principles of freedom relative to what society already values. And is that okay, Prabhu, with an explanation?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And I like the point you were making also about being a leaf on Lord Chaitanya's tree, and that the only way to really be satisfied is to water the root. So that kind of answers it as well. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Really appreciate your insights and your reflections. Anyone else? Dr. Prabhu, please close us off.
What do you want from me? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. There's one thing I'm thinking about. Dina Palika was talking about being affected by the consciousness of, for example, a non-devotee preparing food, cooking grains and so on, and that is of course, that's a real issue. I think it's important to be aware of the fact that regardless of what someone is saying, when you hear from them, you may not even understand what they're saying. But nonetheless, the consciousness of that individual, to some extent, is conveyed by their sound vibration. When you hear from another individual, you can be infected by their consciousness. Doesn't matter what they say, it's a matter of the consciousness that they are absorbed in when they produce that sound vibration. They project that consciousness, and you receive that that transmission, and you can be infected to that by one extent or another, just as you can be infected by the consciousness of someone who prepares a food preparation. If, for example, you go to the grocery store, you buy, or let's say you go to a baker and you buy a loaf of bread, so that bread was prepared by some non-devotee, and you may offer it to Krishna. It may or may not be accepted by Krishna, but in any case, you're going to be affected by the consciousness of the cook. And similarly, when you hear from someone who's speaking of podcasts, the consciousness of that individual is conveyed by their sound vibration. So it's something to be aware of. It's a real threat. There is serious jeopardy there. So it's important to try to confine ourselves to hearing from authoritative and reliable sources. And otherwise, when circumstantially we have to interact with non-devotees in the course of our daily affairs, there are limits to the extent to which we can proactively try to implement some kind of prophylaxis when preaching, distributing books. We try to give others our association, and by doing that, we're not, at least for the period of time that we're giving association, we're not taking association, or at least not necessarily. The ideal is you become expert at giving without having to be affected. The Prabhupada talks about fishing without getting wet. So it's an art, but there will sometimes be contamination nonetheless. So then devotees will sometimes engage in some additional kirtan or japa to purify themselves, but generally when you engage in preaching and making the effort to preach is part of the process of prophylaxis, because when you are preaching, you get the protection of Lord Chaitanya. So even when inadvertently you wind up taking the association of a non-devotee, you're not necessarily going to be affected by that, because Lord Chaitanya will protect. He gives special protection to the devotees who are engaged in preaching activity of his Sankirtan movement. So we're very fortunate to have that protection. It's a special benediction offered by the Lord to those who are doing the very important and special work of propagating Krishna consciousness. So as far as possible, we try to always preach, and if we're not preaching, then we're likely to be more vulnerable to the effects of bad association. So by always being engaged in preaching, then we're in a safe place. Always giving our positive association and taking shelter and protection of Lord Chaitanya. Those are some of my thoughts. And we've run way over time. So, Hare Krishna, thank you for a very thought-provoking class. And I appreciate the fact that you can extemporaneously expound to such an extent on a particular verse you did not prepare for. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I personally am advocating for extended Bhagavatam class. At other temples we have like class after greetings and Guru Puja. And we've done this before, even here, when we have like a great speaker, like for example, Jayadvaita Maharaj, when he gave Bhagavatam class and it ran from like after greetings till about like 10 o'clock. So for the devotees who can do it, like we have a system where the devotee is speaking, it's on their day off, and so they can facilitate. And yeah, just 1 hour, it's not enough. Like we even saw on the Connections group chat that, there was a discussion, and texting is just not a suitable means. There's not enough real estate to actually discuss all the nuances through that medium, through the medium of texting. We actually need to discuss. And so, yeah, maybe, I'm trying to encourage the other speakers as well, is that after you speak, after 1 hour has elapsed, don't feel like restricted by daily greetings. Just excuse yourself from the temple room and discuss, because devotees want to speak. And, through Zoom technology, devotees who can't sit in the class can also just stay tuned, listening while they're doing their service, So if we can just produce this kind of inspirational content, because all of us know each other. So instead of restricting Bhagavatam class and then that leftover inspiration that we need and filling that with some mundane podcast, let's just continue generating the content here, through extended Bhagavatam classes. Obviously, there's the evening CC classes as well, which Devaki Priti Devi, she facilitates. So if we, I think, maintain this ongoing conversation about just extended classes, then we won't have to open ourselves up to just mundane conceptions, which are just flooding the internet. We can just be satisfied with each other, with our community. This is Krishna's way, actually, and this is Damodar's way, that we can find satisfaction within the community of devotees. And in this way, yes, our consciousness, we won't be affected by lower states of consciousness, particularly this pranamaya. So anyway, those are my thoughts, but I really appreciate all of you, your enthusiastic participation, your reflections, you staying online, even though we've been speaking for over 90 minutes. It just, yeah, it feeds into my enthusiasm for Bhakti and discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so, yes, I don't think now we have so much real estate online that, yes, this conception that we've gone over time, I don't believe it anymore. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Rantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.